was nominated by my boyfriend.
She was 18 years old, freshly graduated. A dream of moving to New Orleans sitting in her mind like a heartbeat. Her whole life was supposed to start now. It ended in her father's apartment.
16-year-old Savon Schmus was charged with first-degree murder in the death of his stepsister, McKenna Hilton. Now he's facing a maximum penalty of life in prison.
Her 16-year-old half-brother strangles her with his hands until she stops moving. Then he puts her body in her own car, drives her to a wooded trail less than a mile away, drops her in the bush like she never mattered, and then he goes to Burger King, goes home, and walks her dogs. He spends the evening with his uncle like it's just another Thursday in August. No motive was ever publicly released. Police said they believed they knew why, but they never told anyone. Prosecutors stood in court and called it completely unprovoked and without justification. To this day, nobody knows why Savon Schmus killed McKenna Hilton. But what we do know is this. When that mother walked into that courtroom and looked the boy in the eyes, the boy her daughter had driven to driver's training, the boy her daughter had let sleep in her room, the boy her daughter had called her brother, with tears in eye, she looked straight at him and she said exactly what she felt. I hope you get what you deserve, and when you come out of prison, it's in a body bag.
And I hope that when you go to prison, you get exactly what you deserve. And I hate to say it, maybe I don't, but I hope that when you come out of prison, it's not on your 2 feet. I hope it's in a body bag.
And the judge? The judge looked down from that bench and said he had handled murders. He had handled crimes against children, and this was the most horrific case he had ever seen. If you believe McKenna deserved better, hit that subscribe button right now, because what happened in that courtroom is something you need to know about. Stay with me. Before we talk about what happened to McKenna Hilton, you need to know who she was, because it's easy to hear the word victim and forget that there was a whole person living inside that story. A person with a laugh, with plans, with people who needed her. So let's slow down for a moment. Let's talk about McKenna. McKenna Elizabeth Hilton was 18 years old, and she lived in Kentwood, Michigan, a quiet suburb just outside Grand Rapids. She had just done something that felt enormous to her, in something she had worked toward for years. In the spring of 2016, McKenna walked across the stage at East Kentwood High School and graduated, cap and gown, family in the stands. The whole thing, she was a varsity cheerleader. She had shown up, done the work, and crossed the finish line. And to mark that moment, that specific crossing from one chapter of life to the next, she wore a graduation charm bracelet. Small, simple, something to carry the memory on her wrist. She was working at Craig's Cruisers Family Fun Park, one of the biggest family entertainment centers in all of West Michigan. She was saving money, building something. She had a dream sitting in the back of her mind that she talked about openly. She wanted to move to New Orleans. She wanted to become a medical therapist. She wanted to help people feel better. That was McKenna. She wasn't waiting for life to come to her. She was already walking toward it. At home, 2 dogs named Carl and Chloe, and anyone who knew McKenna knew how much those dogs meant to her. She loved them the way people love the things that never let them down. Her Facebook page had a caption that said everything about her energy, just 4 words. Occupation, princess. That was her humor. That was her confidence. That was the girl who knew exactly who she was and wasn't apologizing for any of it. People who worked alongside her described her as kind, smart, and full of big dreams. Her high school called her an outstanding person. Her co-workers wrote that they would never forget her.
Head's still not wrapped around it. It hasn't hit me truly. It's just like, I can't believe it still.
3 months ago, we were just in class, laughing, having arguments, and friends talking every day in the hallways, just talking.
And her mother, Stacy Hilton, described her simply as so funny, bright, fantastic, beautiful, unique, thoughtful, and very much loved. That was McKenna, 18 years old, freshly graduated, New Orleans on her mind. And she considered Savon Schmus her brother. She drove him to driver's training. She let him sleep in her room. When their families had gone on vacations together, her mother said McKenna had told her she loved the kid. She trusted him completely. That trust would cost McKenna everything. To understand what happened in that apartment on August 18th, 2016, you have to understand the house these two grew up around. Because this case doesn't start with a strangulation. It starts years earlier, in a home that was already broken before anyone called the police. McKenna and Savon shared the same father, a man named David Schmus. They had different mothers, different households, different lives, but that one connection brought them into the same orbit, into the same apartments, into the same family trips, and eventually into the same room where one of them would not walk out alive. David Schmus was not a stable man. His criminal record stretched back to the 1990s, drug convictions, gun charges, a history that kept brushing up against the law without ever fully paying for it, but nothing in that record prepared anyone for what came out in 2010. McKenna was 12 years old. Child Protective Services received a report. Investigators looked into the household, and what they found was this. David Schmus had taken a photograph of 12-year-old McKenna on his cell phone while she was in the shower. McKenna told police herself she was 12 years old, and she had to sit across from investigators and tell them what her own father had done to her. Let that land for a moment. Now here is where the system steps in. David Schmus had a prior record long enough that this charge could have meant up to 15 years behind bars. 15 years. Instead, a judge handed him 24 months of probation. He walked out of that courthouse and went back to his life, back to his children, back to the same orbit that McKenna could never fully escape. And Savon? Savon was 10 years old when this happened, old enough to know something serious was going on. Old enough for the court to receive a letter written in a child's handwriting defending his father. Savon wrote to the judge and said his father would give his life for his children, that he would never hurt them. He was 10 years old, defending the man who had just photographed his sister in the shower. There is something deeply painful about that detail, because it tells you exactly what kind of confusion these children were living inside, who was protecting them, who was teaching them what was normal, what they were being raised to accept as love. McKenna grew up in that shadow. She built her cheerleading career, her graduation, on her dreams of New Orleans, all while carrying the weight of a father who had violated her and a system that had let him stay. She never got a clean start. Not once. And years later, after everything that happened to McKenna, after Savon was already in prison, David Schmus was sentenced to prison himself. A single sentence is enough for that man. He ended up exactly where he belonged. But the damage he created in that household did not wait for his conviction. It had already done its work. It had already shaped the world that McKenna and Savon lived in. And on a Thursday afternoon in August 2016, that world collapsed completely. It was a Thursday, August 18th, 2016. Grand Rapids, Michigan, the kind of summer day that feels ordinary from the outside, warm, quiet. McKenna Hilton was at her father's apartment, the Lamberton Lakes Apartments on the 3000 block of Plaza Drive Northeast. She had been there before. It was familiar ground. Savon was there too. 16 years old, no criminal record, no history of violence, nothing in his past that would make anyone in that room think twice about leaving the two of them together. And nobody knows exactly what was said between them that afternoon. No argument was reported, no witness heard raised voices, no disturbance was called in. What investigators know, and what Savon himself later confirmed, is that at some point during those hours, he put his hands on his half-sister's throat, and he did not let go. McKenna Hilton was strangled to death in that apartment. She was 18 years old. She had her graduation bracelet on her wrist, the same bracelet she had worn to mark the beginning of everything that came next. There was no next. After she was gone, Savon didn't panic. He didn't call for help. He didn't sit with what he had done. He put McKenna's body into her own car, drove to a wooded trail near Emerald Lake Drive and Valentine Street Northeast. Less than a mile from that apartment, he carried her into the bush, and he left her there. What she was wearing when they found her, a white tank top with blue stripes, the black Adidas running pants, and that graduation charm bracelet still on her wrist. Later that same day, a man was walking his dog along that trail. He found her lying in the bush. He called the police. And just like that, the ordinary Thursday became the day that split McKenna Hilton's story into before and after. She never made it to New Orleans. She never made it to anything. Think about what you would do if something terrible happened. Even something accidental, even something you didn't mean. Your hands would shake, your chest would tighten, you would call someone, you would cry, you would do something that looked like a human being responding to the weight of what just happened. Savon Schmus did none of that. He left McKenna's body in the bush off Valentine Street, climbed back into her car, and drove to Burger King. Let that sit for a second. He didn't drive to a police station. He didn't pull over on the side of the road and fall apart. He didn't call his mother or his uncle or anyone who might have talked him into doing the right thing. He ordered food. He sat with whatever he ordered. And when he was done, he drove home. And when he got home, he walked the dogs, Carl and Chloe, McKenna's dogs, the same animals she had loved and cared for and named. Savon took them outside, walked them through the neighborhood, and came back inside like it was just another evening, like nothing had happened, like McKenna wasn't lying in the woods, less than a mile away wearing her graduation bracelet. He then spent time with his uncle, calm, present, normal, a 16-year-old boy moving through the hours after murdering his sister with the emotional temperature of someone who had simply had a long day. Meanwhile, across town, a stranger was kneeling over McKenna's body on a trail. Police were being called. Us investigators were arriving at the scene. Her mother's phone was about to ring with the kind of news that changes a person forever. And Savon was at home, unbothered. When police came for him, he didn't run, he didn't deny it. He sat down and he told them what he did. Confessed to the strangulation. Confirmed the details. No tears on record. No visible breakdown. Just a boy telling investigators how he killed his sister and went about his evening. His own aunt, Tracy Schmus Moore, would later say, "Nothing in a million years could have given me the slightest hint that something like this was going to happen. Nobody saw it coming, nobody understood it. And the most chilling part of this entire case is not the crime itself, it is the hours that followed. Because what those hours tell you about Savon Schmus, about what was or wasn't happening inside him, is something that no forensic evaluation, no courtroom statement, and no sentence length can fully explain. He killed her. He ate. He walked her dogs. He went to sleep. And to this day, nobody knows why. When police arrested Savon Schmus, he was 16 years old. No prior record, no juvenile history, nothing in the system attached to his name before that Thursday in August. And yet, under Michigan law, that didn't matter. A 16-year-old charged with murder in the state of Michigan is automatically tried as an adult. The charge was open murder, the maximum penalty, life in prison, without the possibility of parole. For most people following this case, why, that felt like exactly where this was headed. A confession on the table, a body in the woods, a family destroyed. What else was there to argue? But the law had other ideas. Before the case could move forward, a judge ordered a forensic evaluation. The court needed to confirm that Savon understood the charges against him and was competent to assist in his own defense. The evaluation came back. He was competent. The case moved forward. Then came October 2017, just over a year after McKenna's body was found on that trail. Savon's attorneys and the prosecution reached a plea agreement. Savon would plead guilty to first-degree murder. The prosecution would not pursue life without parole. The legal foundation for that decision rested on two United States Supreme Court rulings, Miller versus Alabama and Jackson versus Hobbs, both decided in 2012. Those rulings established that mandatory life without parole sentences for juvenile offenders violated the Eighth Amendment. Cruel and unusual punishment. That protection now stood between Savon Schmus and the sentence McKenna's family believed he deserved. Prosecutor Chris Becker addressed it directly. He said the people closest to the case, people who were inside that apartment building, people who knew what happened, were not willing to come forward. And David Schmus's side of the family would not cooperate. Stacy Hilton was described by the prosecution as extremely unhappy. She and her family had strenuously objected to any offer from the beginning, but the deal was done. Sentencing was set for October 30th, 2017. Stacy Hilton had one child, just one.
You're my only baby, and you're always going to be my only baby, and I love you so very much.
McKenna was everything. Her only baby, her best friend, the person she had spent 18 years pouring herself into. And now she was being asked to sit in a courtroom, listen to attorneys argue about sentencing guidelines, and watch the boy who killed her daughter receive anything less than everything. She was not going to be quiet about it. When the plea deal was finalized, Stacy didn't accept it in silence. She shouted across that courtroom at Savon Schmus directly, 4 words that have followed this case ever since. Rot in hell, Savon. But she wasn't done, not even close. On sentencing day, Stacy stood at that podium and she spoke directly to her daughter first. She said,
I didn't really prepare a speech, so I don't really know what to say, but to my daughter, McKenna, I want to say I love you. And I always will love you, and we all love you, and we miss you so very much. And I'm so proud of you for who you were becoming. And I know that who you would have been so wonderful. And I'm so sorry that I wasn't there that day to protect you. You're my only baby, and you're always going to be my only baby, and I love you so very much. Savon, I hate you. I will never forgive you. McKenna did nothing to you to deserve what you did to her. McKenna considered you to be her brother. I remember her saying that she loved the kid, referring to you. She drove you to make sure you got to driver's training. She let you stay in her room. We went on vacations together. I don't know what possessed you to think that you had the right to take her life the way that you did. And I hope that when you go to prison, you get exactly what you deserve. And I hate to say it, maybe I don't, but I hope that when you come out of prison, it's not on your 2 feet. I hope it's in a body bag.
when it was over and reporters caught her outside, Stacy didn't perform grief for the cameras. She simply said, "There isn't really any justice for McKenna, because no matter what happens, McKenna's not coming back." A mother who lost everything and said exactly what she meant. October 30th, 2017, Kent County Circuit Court, Judge George Quist presiding. The room was split before anyone said a word. Stacy Hilton and McKenna's supporters sat on one side. David Schmus and Savon's supporters sat on the other. One victim, one family now divided into two, one courtroom that couldn't contain the grief and the rage, pulling in both sides. Savon sat at the defense table with his head down. He did not speak, not a single word to the family, not a single word to the court. His attorney spoke for him, asking the judge to consider his age, his lack of prior record, his claimed remorse. Stacy Hilton shook her head visibly from across the room. Then David Schmus stood up, McKenna's father. He stood up in that courtroom, opened a Bible, and read from 1 Corinthians. Love never gives up. Love never loses faith. He wept. And as the session moved forward, he called out across the courtroom to Savon, "I love you." Then Judge Quist spoke. "I have never seen so many letters from family and friends of a victim of a crime. After dealing with several murders and sexual assaults on children, this is the most horrific crime this court has ever handled. The sentence, 40 to 100 years in prison, the maximum the plea agreement allowed. Savon Schmus will not be eligible for parole until he is approximately 60 years old," Stacy Hilton posted on Facebook minutes after leaving that courtroom. 5 words. Well, the best we could have hoped for. When the gavel came down, the story didn't end. It just shifted. Savon Schmus was transported to a Michigan State Correctional Facility. He was 17 years old. He will spend the entirety of his youth, his young adulthood, and his middle age behind bars. The earliest he walks out is around the year 2056. He will be approximately 60 years old, if he walks out at all. McKenna never got to move to New Orleans. She never got to become a medical therapist. She never got to see what her life would have become. But her name didn't disappear. Her family established a memorial scholarship fund in her honor at Kentwood High School, awarded to students who make a positive impact on the people around them. Students who choose kindness to others the way McKenna always did. Here is what the Savon Schmus case leaves behind. A girl who did everything right. She graduated. She worked. She loved people generously and without condition. She opened her room to her brother, showed up for him in ways that most people never show up for anyone. McKenna Hilton gave Savon Schmus every reason to protect her, and he killed her anyway. No argument on record, no warning, no explanation that has ever been made public. She trusted the wrong person. The Supreme Court considered his age, and now he will sit in a cell and consider it himself. For the next 40 years, some people will say 40 years is not enough. Some people will say a life for a life is the only real answer. That conversation belongs in the comments below. Drop your thoughts, because this case deserves to be talked about. If this story moved you, share it. Say her name. McKenna Elizabeth Hilton. She was 18 years old, and she mattered. And before you go, click the video on your screen right now. Another case is waiting, another story that proves that justice, no matter how long it takes, always finds its way. I will see you there.